Hello and welcome to another episode of Issues and Insights. I'm Megan Cable with A+ Family Healthcare. Today we're welcoming Krista Schaus, who is here with United Way of Central Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to be with United Way?
I was a paralegal it's been almost 13 years ago. I was a paralegal here. I've worked in family law and in the legal field for many years, and I was just looking for a change. My job required that I interacted with clientele. There was a lot of hand-holding through those processes, and I just felt like there was something else I could be doing to support my community at a larger level. I just have a deep desire for that. So there was a position open with United Way for an admin assistant. So I applied for it. I had three interviews for this position, and I finally got hired, and so that's how I started out. So I really have worked from the bottom to the absolute top of the organization.
That's incredible.
In between that, my positions have been Director of Operations, and most recently was Director of Development, then President of the organization, serving with Joe Fowler, who was our CEO. He retired in November, and that's when I was named CEO. So
awesome.
That's the short version of how I got here.
That's perfect. So tell us a little bit about United Way of Central Kentucky. We know that you all are active in the community, but what exactly do you all do and how do you support this community?
Sure, great question. So United Way of Central Kentucky was established now 23 years ago. We broke off from Metro United Way. At that time, we were just providing services to Hardin County. Over the years, it has grown to 5 counties, which is Hardin, Meade, Breckenridge, LaRue, and Grayson counties. Wow. Beyond fundraising, which that is something normally people associate with United Way, we are fundraisers, but what we are seeking to build and grow in our communities is supports for education, financial stability, health initiatives, and youth opportunities. And more recently, there is becoming a focus on environmental issues as well. So what we do in raising funds is talking about those pillars I just mentioned. We are funding programming locally in these 5 counties that support those. So it could be a food pantry, it could be an after-school program. For years, we supported the community health clinic.
Yep.
And so that's just a few examples. We've had a wide range of partners over the years, but all of those programs that they run serve those purposes.
Yeah.
We want to make sure people are fed, that people are healthy, that people have access to education, and like I said more recently, environment and sustainability, and then youth opportunities has always been a part of that, but not something I think we've talked a lot about, but it's always been a part of our work, and it's something we're talking about more now.
Yeah, and speaking of youth, you all are doing a lot within educational institutions. So can you talk about what you're doing in our region in reference to those educational institutions?
So for years, we've been partnered with Hardin County Schools. Most recently, and I think really important, is we've been partnered with several of our elementary schools, Radcliffe Elementary and New Highland Elementary. They have the 21st Century Grant Program there.
Yep.
As a partner with them to bring that grant to the community, they have to have a nonprofit partner, and so we've served as that partner for the schools. But when they first get this grant, we're talking about $600,000 that comes into this community to serve the children in those schools that need it the most. And so those kids who are benefiting from 21st Century, they're just needing a little extra attention, a little extra help with their work, in school, just to kind of help them get over any kind of bumps. We'll call them bumps.
Yeah.
But it's getting those kids exposure to more one-on-one instruction and support. And beyond that, they run a summer camp each year that takes those kids for 4 weeks and exposes them to a lot of things. But there's a weekly field trip. We've helped support that program either through volunteers or our partner agencies to strategically give them what they need.
Yeah, of course.
That's pretty high level, but what we've seen is improvement in academics and social skills and kids feeling like they can do their work, that they can be successful. Sometimes I think we all just need that boost of confidence that you're completely capable.
Yes.
Maybe we just have to do this a little differently.
Yeah, and speaking of some of those bumps, what are some of those obstacles that kids right here in our region face?
Well, some of those obstacles, just to tell you, in our region, over 14,000 people received rent and utility assistance over the
Wow.
past 12 months. They experienced food insecurity. I can tell you, and I brought some numbers just so that I don't mess
course.
anything up, but food insecurity has resulted in the local agency supplying over 700,000 pounds of food in the last 12 months. A lot of, as far as school, there's children who may not have access to some basic needs. Our resource centers in the schools are a incredible provider of things like toothpaste, soap, laundry
Basic
detergent.
needs. Just basic
The
needs.
bare minimum, when we talk about housing and food, those are basic human rights.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it's because parents don't want to, but with our changing economy, with inflation in the past year, while people may be making good wages, it's not enough to have kept up with this inflation. And I
Yes.
really think that employers are trying out there, because we work with a lot of these employer partners. And it's, you're always running behind.
Yeah.
While inflation has slowed, nothing's going to turn back to the way it was.
No.
And so making sure that people have access to the most basic essentials is very important if we want a thriving community in any way.
So for the last 10 years, we've really seen statistically that students who are struggling at home with health or food or having a home, that they're not able to perform well at school.
Correct.
Because they have all of this outside pressure and all of this outside stress, and it's causing so many issues for them. And so by alleviating those basic needs and making sure that they have what they need, they're able to perform better in school, which will thus help them in the future as they come along, right?
Oh, of course. Well, I think the easiest example of this is think about being real hungry. Maybe even hangry. If you've gone too long without something to eat,
Yeah.
are you functioning at your best?
No.
Because that stomach's rumbling and, perhaps hurting, and just like, that's the only thing about is like, I need something to eat.
Yes.
And sometimes our schools are the provider of one meal a day. And thank goodness for programs like the backpack program that are available to help serve children who otherwise may not know where food may be coming from. And it's hard to think about little kids having a pressure like that on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, and it can make it hard, and I'm sure as an educator being in the schools, you are doing everything you can to make sure that these kids are loved and getting
Oh.
their basic needs.
Our teachers I think they're angels.
Amazing.
They're right there
Yes.
with nurses for me. They
Yeah.
are angels, and obviously nobody goes into teaching to get rich. They do it because they
love
have
of
a
kids.
love not only for education but for children and the possibilities for their future. So
Yeah.
hats off to teachers.
Oh, yeah. So switching gears a little bit,
Sure.
let's talk about some of the funding that you all receive. How do you allocate that over our whole area here that you've described?
So any nonprofit in our region, those 5 counties, as I mentioned before, those pillars, we're serving education, basic needs, health. They have to have a focus. Their nonprofit has to have a focus on those.
Yep.
We want to see the needles moving, so to speak, in those areas. But they must be those focus areas, and they have to be within our 5 counties. They are eligible to apply for funding through United Way. We typically have a grant process every year that opens it up. We've honed our grant process down. What we're not trying to do is create additional barriers. We can give money to programming, and they can still have accountability without the hurdles of some grant processes that they face. So what we're out there doing is, by our ability to connect with the public at large, with all the relationships that cross all lines, that we're able to take some of that fundraising burden off of them. But you apply, and it is vetted by volunteers through our organization. We've got a couple of our board members who sit on a community investment team, and then other donors and volunteers come in from our businesses, people who are giving to United Way, who are invested in where we're going. They read through these grants, and then they have the hard decision of saying, who's getting money? And it's a horrible, actually, I mean, it's a good process, but it's also a very tough and agonizing process because there is such great need. And sometimes it's hard weighing out what's the greatest need. And so they work in conjunction with our board of directors to determine where that money goes every year. So it's not me and my staff at United Way saying, we're going to fund X, Y, Z. It's our volunteers and investors who are apprised of the problems and the ability to meet that with solutions.
And so once those funds are allocated, they go to various organizations within our community. How many families in our area are utilizing those organizations that United Way funds?
Okay, this is huge. I haven't looked at recent numbers to be exact, but we have a population in our 5 counties of around not quite 300,000, but we're getting there. Over 131,000 people have been served in our 5 counties over the last 12 months. Wow. Now, to put that in even, that's a 48% jump over the 12 months prior. That's almost 50% more people are using that. And so I'm not quick with math in my head and percentages, but 131,000 out of
300, that's
almost 300,000 people. You know, it's 30% roughly.
Yeah,
and then we better check that, and if we need to cut it, we should. But
so roughly a third of our population.
A third of our population is being served by services that are funded by United Way. And just to give you, this is also appalling, that's 116% increase from 24 months ago. We're really getting hit hard in our communities.
Yes.
And in some of our counties, Hardin County is blessed. We have a lot of resources here. We actually have some nonprofits that we partner with that may be housed here, but they are also serving our outside counties. So there are people coming in from the other counties and benefiting from those services that they provide.
Especially those rural areas.
Yes.
Right?
And a good portion of our community is rural.
Yes.
So resources may not necessarily be available in some of our counties.
Yeah.
I can't make those, I can't dictate that a nonprofit start up, but so there just isn't a lot. Say, let's take Grayson County, for example. They have a community action. They're limited with federal funding as to what they can do in the community, though they do a lot of good work. But we have one food pantry in Grayson County, and it's the Grayson County Alliance.
Yeah.
And they are serving an entire community. We're a little more blessed here in Hardin County. We have more access in that, but you're looking at where Litchfield is the county seat of Grayson County.
Yeah.
But that's about as busy as it gets around there. Everything else is rural. And so when you talk about having access, I mean, that's tribal's required. A lot of people don't have transportation, even to go to a job or take their kids to school, what the needs may be. So when you're talking about having one resource in a county, it's so vital that we're able to provide support for that.
Yeah.
Because once again, that's the most basic of needs, having something to eat and a roof over your head.
Yes.
Does that help? Does that answer the question for you?
Sure does. Yes.
Great.
Okay, how does United Way help the community that's outside? So not just Grayson County. Talk about all of those counties that are surrounding us. What are we doing? How are we helping? How are we utilizing what we have, being blessed here in Hardin County with all of our resources? What are we doing? How are we helping them?
Well, we've recently started, within the past couple of years, it's called Mini Grants Program. So this is not money. So maybe I should explain this first. Predominantly, the amount of money that we raise every year comes from people who give through payroll deduction. That's me. That's how I give to United Way. Is I filled out a pledge form. employers around, we have partnerships with a good deal of employers here
Yes.
who allow us to come in and talk about what we do in the community and how that translates from dollar donations to real help, real impact in the community.
Yes.
So we're able to communicate that, and so people have the option, if they would like to give, they can touch so much. Just what I've told you as far as what we're focused on, all of these things are pillars of the community, things that everybody needs.
Yeah.
So they have an option to give, and they can give whatever amount they want out of their payroll, however often they are paid. That money's collected by their HR payroll department, and we get checks monthly, weekly, however they get paid is usually how the money comes into our organization. So we reserve that specifically for that grant process and those community partners. But the mini grant money is more of an unrestricted dollar. So that's raised through any kind of special event we might do. We don't do many special events. We've got one coming up, skydive for a change. We're so excited. We've never done anything like this. So it's new.
Okay.
That money will go to a program called Good Neighbor, Operation Good Neighbor, excuse me. That's a program that helps people who are senior citizens or disabled who may not have the physical or financial capability of making just minor repairs to their home.
Yeah.
Maybe it's steps that need repair. Maybe they need a ramp because of physical access.
Yeah.
So we've received calls at the office for years, and there's no nonprofit, there's no organization that specifically deals with that.
Wow.
A lot of times repairs and things like that are done by church organizations who want to be out in the community. So what we did is we've partnered with a couple of our churches locally with their volunteer teams. We took some of the money from our golf scramble and from our Whiskey Wednesday raffles, and we started a seed money of $10,000 as part of that mini grant to get this program off the ground.
Awesome.
And so that's what Skydive's doing.
Yes.
But the mini grants, all this other unrestricted money doesn't come from people's payroll deduction. We've been able to supply funding to Breck Grayson programs, which is Head Start for Breck and Grayson counties. Their children's garden. They were inspired by the community garden we have outside of our office, so they wanted to bring that to the children to give them that opportunity to learn how to grow their own food.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's just one of them.
Yeah.
We also did a mini grant to LaRue County schools, which allowed them for their sensory playground to get more equipment for those children with special needs who enjoy that playground.
Yes.
So just off the top of my head, that's a couple. We've partnered with Barnes & Noble. They did a book drive this past December, and so we've been able to restock every little library in Hardin County.
Oh,
and as we have more and we look at that little library map, we're going to go out into the other counties with that partnership to make sure we continue. So it may not be huge dents in some instances, but a lot of times requests that are out there by nonprofits, they're pretty minimal. They can be $3,000 down to $500.
Yeah.
But the impact that amount of money makes,
it ripples.
it's incredible. Yes, it's just like throwing a rock into a pond. It extends. One of our requests was for $500 from Cloverport schools in Breckenridge County. They're an independent school system. All grades are housed in the same school up to senior year. They asked for $500 for a cleaning closet. But it's just like that Frisky closet where it's laundry detergent, it's soap, it's toothpaste, it's deodorant.
Yeah.
We don't want people to not have access to those simplest things. And so $500 supplied a year's worth of, school year's worth of supplies to those families as they needed it.
Wow.
That's that's the low end of things. So it's exciting to be able to have the freedom to take a small mini grant application, not put them through the bigger process, knowing it's a need and being able to fulfill it throughout the year rather than just one time a year.
Yeah. And as somebody who's a part of this community, it's sometimes hard for us to know where, as a giver, where our money goes. And sometimes we think, well, I only have so much in my budget that I can give. Is it actually going to do enough? But hearing the projects that are the $100, $500, like my $50 can really help to do this. The money that I can give can help someone else. So how are we going to help the next person after us who needs it? So even the smallest amount that we can give is going to make a difference in lives.
100%. 100%. I would never presume to tell somebody what they should give, or you need to give 10% of your anything. You give what you can, what is in your heart to give. We have people out there who probably give, we call sacrificial giving, because it could be to their own detriment. There's always people out there who've been through bad, through circumstances. They know what it's like to be there if they want to give. And there's people who have a great deal more that they're able to give. Any amount of money is going to be multiplied through our network because of the partners that we work with.
Yes.
You want to talk about people who know how to stretch a buck.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But what's more important is just not that we're able to put out the money, but that it has a collective impact over time. Some of these programs that we've supported over the years, it may not something that you see a result to right now, but down the road, it's going to make a huge difference. I'll use just one example of CASA. They're court-appointed special advocates for children. I'm probably sure a lot of the viewers are familiar with their work, but they are a child's advocate who's in the court system, who's probably been removed from their home, that they are the eyes and ears on that child while they're away from their parents, because they look for reunification always. But sometimes that's not a possibility. But that child having another person they can count on in their life when things are not, say, going the best, and you're put into a strange place with strange people who are well-meaning and doing the best they can to provide a safe, strong environment for those kids. It's still tough. It's tough being away from your family.
Yes.
But we've seen examples from CASA of the Heartland where the CASA who's working with children, as they become adults, that CASA provider has been a huge part of their life.
Yes.
They never forget it. We've got some that are honorary grandparents, some that have been best men in weddings. And it's like programs like that, or like Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Those relationships, those supportive relationships, are incredible. And so that touches on another piece of the work, which is volunteering. While money is important, and we do need it, I will never turn down money. Having people who are driven to volunteer, they want to give back. Maybe that's how they do it.
Yes.
And, not everybody wants to paint a wall or a fence, but there's different ways to volunteer. You can advocate. Maybe somebody needs help stuffing envelopes. Maybe a nonprofit needs your support and expertise in what you know.
Yes.
And having the time to give, your treasure, those are wonderful. But it's so meaningful when people stand up and say, I want to be a part of this, not only through a donation, but I'm going to give my time. Time is the most valuable thing that we have.
Yes.
And we are so thankful for volunteers who do it. All of our board members, there's no paid volunteers in my organization.
Yeah.
So.
It's just giving your time.
Absolutely.
Because you have a heart for it, and you have a heart for this community and wanting to give back and take care of the people in it.
I think everybody has that piece in them. What our job is to help connect people with those passions.
Yeah.
And most nonprofits, we're usually small staffed. I have a staff of 4. I'm one of 4. And I could tell you I could use 10 more of my team.
Yeah.
Because it's that large of an area, there's that much need.
There is.
So where volunteers can come in and advocate beside us and our nonprofit partners, we all need the support.
I mean, going off of the numbers, it's 1/3 of this community, not Hardin County, but our surrounding counties, where they all come to our area as well, not just for help, but this is where they come to be a part of our economy. So why wouldn't we give back to those people who are a part of our economy?
Well, that's right. You've touched on that. The thing here is that not only do we have Hardin County residents going out to our other counties and working, but we have a lot of those folks coming here to work.
Yeah.
So to say we're divided by, a boundary line that This is Hardin County. Well, this is Grayson. Look, we're everybody's neighbor. We're all in this together, but this is our region. This is our place. And what I want to emphasize is that when you donate to us locally, your money stays local. It comes back and it supports our community.
Yeah.
We're not sending it out to other states, another country. It stays here in Central Kentucky.
So looking forward into the future, what are your goals for United Way here in Central Kentucky?
Well, with the changing landscape of our community, there's some strategic planning that our board has to work on, but our overarching goal is that we have thriving communities where everybody has a chance to succeed, where we don't have to worry about where we're going to lay our head at night or if we're going to have food to eat tomorrow, that I have access to health care. And I say I mean the collective I and we.
Yes.
Is those basic things. Those are the building blocks of a thriving community. Partnerships with like our local college, HCEC-TV, access to education through not only through them, through our school systems, all of them in all of our counties. We're here to break down barriers, and we're here to help support people, lift them up so that we can have strong futures and we keep people here. You know, a lot of rural counties have experienced over the years, we've got, kids that grow up, turn 18, we go off to college somewhere else.
Yeah.
A lot of times we don't come back to our communities because the opportunities haven't been there.
Yeah.
But with the economic development and where we're at now and where we're heading in the future, there won't be a reason for people to leave this community if you don't want to. You can stay here and you can grow up in your hometown and you can raise a family in your hometown and you'll have many opportunities around you. So we support the economic development, but we have to support the side of our community that is lacking resources. Because if we don't have resources, development becomes a little trickier.
Yeah.
People need to know that there are things out here that can help support. Most people don't know about our nonprofit system or aren't familiar with a lot of our agencies simply because they've never needed it. But as we look at a third of our community using these services, a lot more people are beginning to know. And especially when there isn't a place to turn to, that's where we come in to make sure that we have resources.
Yeah. Krista, thank you so much for joining us today. We've appreciated the time that you've spent with us and the information that you've shared with us. And you've given us a lot of information, whether it has been how to volunteer, how to give, or just where to even learn about what United Way is doing here in our communities. How can we reach you, and where can we go?
Okay. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, United Way of Central Kentucky. You can go to our website at unitedwayck.org, or you can simply call our office at 270-737-6608.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for joining us again for another episode of Issues and Insights. Have a great day.